My bio dad is upset I didn't ask him to walk me down the aisle for my wedding or invite him. I told him I would rather crawl on hot coals down the aisle than ask him. I 24F am getting married in 2 weeks to my fiancé 25M. Backstory is that my dad walked out of my life when I was 3. He was the type of dad I would see every once in a blue moon up until I was 7. For a few years after that, I would try to hold on to him and stay in contact with him. Then I found out that he got a new family and he never contacted me again after that. Luckily when I was 13 I met my now fiancé and his dad is amazing. My fiancé and I were just best friends and I would call his dad Dad and he really was the dad I never had and I love that man so much. Fast forward to 4 or 5 days ago, get a friend request on Instagram and it's my dad's wife. She goes on to say how she wishes we all had a relationship and she wants me to have a relationship with her kids. They're like 8, 12, and 15. She tells me how my dad regrets not being in my life. I told her never to contact me again and I block her. My mom sadly passed away from cancer 3 years ago and she left me her house. I don't know how he knows I live here but it's 2024 and we live with the internet so I'm pretty sure it's not hard. He shows up 2 days ago while my dad is there and he sees my engagement ring and he sees some RSVPs on my table. He goes, "I saw that you were getting married on Facebook and wanted to come by and say congratulations." I tell him thank you and try to close the door and he stops it and says, "Is anybody walking you down the aisle?" I tell him yes, my dad is in motion to my fiancé's dad. My bio dad gets really upset and says, "I'm your father, you can't just pretend like I'm not your father. You don't know how hard it was," and he just goes on rambling. I tell him, "You remember that you left me, right?" Then he goes on to say, "You didn't contact me either." I tell him it was my job as a 10-year-old to beg you to be in my life. My dad told him that he should leave and he's upsetting me and I'm already stressed out enough about the wedding and I don't need any extra stress. My bio dad gets upset and says, "You can't steal my daughter from me. I'm still her dad and you're just her husband's dad and he'll always be my dad." My dad starts to get really upset and they start arguing, so I stopped him and say I would rather crawl down the aisle on hot coals than ever ask you to walk me down the aisle. I told him to never contact me again and I want nothing to do with him or his family.